Penn State fans, quite the game you guys just witnessed. Bob Flounders here. I'm in Harrisburg. I'm joined remotely by David Jones, who is in Bloomington, who got an up close and personal look at one of the more incredible finishes in Penn State history. It did not go the Lions' way. I don't know that I've seen many games with many more momentum swings and crazy plays
and crazy decisions.
Crazy decisions, Dave. It just was. It was just. I mean, I was just thinking, Dave. I'll get your opinion in a second. Penn State lost a tough game in the Rose Bowl. They lost a couple of tough games to Ohio State in 2017 and 2018. But Dave, I'm going to say this. This game is in the running for one of the toughest losses, I think, of the James Franklin era, just because of the way that it played out. I mean, it literally, Dave, was the definition of an improbable Indiana win. It just shouldn't have shook out the way that it did.
It was, it's a gut punch loss, but the other ones, I wouldn't have felt as bad about the USC loss. I mean, they went down swinging, and Trace McSorley threw a pick, doing what he'd been doing all year. Their defense couldn't stop USC. That wasn't this. This is what could have happened one of those other trips here. When was that? 4 years ago? Or 2 years ago, when they almost pissed away
30-28, yeah.
Yeah. That could have happened this time through harebrained in-game decisions. And, I mean, any way you game out that end of the game where they're up 21-20 on the 14-yard line with a minute 48, it's somewhere between 8 and 15 seconds left, with Indiana getting the ball with no timeouts on whatever, their 20-yard line, with 45 yards to go for a school record field goal attempt. What is that, 2 plays? If you do that. Now, you can tell your running back to run and get as far as possible.
Devin Ford.
Everyone's got to be clear on the plan. You take a timeout, and everyone's got to be clear on the plan. Everyone in the offensive huddle has to be clear, don't score. And certainly, if you get a first down, that's it. You get a first down, and you don't score, end of game. This has happened over and over with James Franklin in game management issues. And, if I was a Penn State fan, I would be pissed off. It really, it just shouldn't happen. This isn't the same as USC or any other tough loss, in my opinion, under James Franklin.
Well, I mean, it's the same, Dave, in the fact that Penn State, I think, could easily have won all 3 of those games too. I mean, they were one third down conversion against but it's USC out of 3. They blew a 15-point lead in the fourth quarter to Ohio State. They had a double-digit lead at home to Ohio State at home. And the Devin Ford touchdown run, it was pretty clear he knew that he messed up, because he barely got into the end zone, and he caught himself. I think he was told, Dave, what to do, and in the heat of the moment, he forgot.
I think he was told what to do too. But you got to make sure everyone knows. And if you don't think everyone knows, or everyone isn't quite clear, or you don't trust people who might not have played too much, then you take a knee.
Right.
You take a knee.
Right.
You take a knee. Okay?
Absolutely.
It's like a 98% chance you're going to win them.
Yeah.
And this wasn't, man.
Yeah.
You could see everyone go, whoa, man, this is trouble. There's a minute 42 left. That's an eternity. Penix had not played well, but even he, it seemed like that turned on his light bulb, and all of a sudden he was a world beater. I mean, and it was the obvious play, I guess, for Tom Allen, but pretty shrewd of him too.
I think I know that you've always liked Tom Allen for a number of reasons. Not only because he can coach, but for what he's done to build up the program, for his feelings. I know his strong feelings about Friday Night Football, all that. But having said all that, that guy showed the heart of the lion in this game. And I just love the decision he made in overtime. He had enough of losing to Penn State, and he was going to take a shot. I loved it. And it was just a phenomenal for a sloppy game.
Before I forget, what did that moment and who did it remind you of when he went for two?
Well, it didn't remind me. It reminded me of Billy O'Brien against Michigan. It wasn't a 2-point play, but he disdained. He went for it on 4th down, and I think they scored a touchdown on a Billy Belton run.
Oh, it reminded me of Chris. It reminded me of Chris Peterson against Oklahoma.
Yeah.
In the field ball.
And unfortunately, it reminded me a little bit of Tom Osborne against Miami, but we're not going to go into that. Dave, we're not going to go into that.
Well, in this way, Boise knew they couldn't go on much longer with Oklahoma with superior athletes. And in the same way, I mean, Penn State has recruited at a different level than Indiana. And Tom Allen is looking at this thinking, all right.
It was now or never. They're never going to get him. This was it.
We just scored. We got within 1. We're not going to let this go on all day.
Yeah.
We're gonna do or die right here. And then Penix's stretch. Holy crap! I mean,
Dave, the whole key. He switched the ball into the right hand. If he keeps it in his left hand, he's not going to score.
I didn't notice that. I did not notice that.
Watch the replay. Switch to his right hand, the closer hand.
Right.
That couple inches mattered. The left hand never would have got there.
Okay. Now let's get to this.
Yeah.
What was when you first saw the replay, the most clear replay? What did you think?
Well, I don't think he scored. I'm going to say that. But having said that, I think that they were never going to overturn it because it was just too close. And I mean, maybe the angle I saw, maybe they had a different angle they were looking at. I think he was literally an inch short of scoring. That's what I thought.
Yeah, I do too. My judgment was that the body of the ball hit the white of the sideline just a nanosecond. Yeah. Man, it was probably a millimeter before it hit the pylon.
Dave, if Penix is 6'2" and not 6'3", Penn State wins.
It was
that close.
But I thought they should have overturned it, and yet I think Greg said before we got on, I asked him, and he said, whichever way they had decided it was,
you can't.
You don't overturn it.
Yeah.
Okay. You know,
it's
what it comes down to is Penn State lost that game with a minute 48 left in regulation.
They did. And even
Indiana did, and Tom Allen and Indiana did everything right to win it from them.
Penix made some incredible throws against tight coverage.
Oh my God, with guys crawling on him, guys all over the top of him.
Penn State's defense, which played so good, they were in position to make some plays on both. Well, I shouldn't say they were in position to make some plays on the tying touchdown drive. Adisa Isaac sacks him, face mask, and they get him. Dave, they get him 3rd and 9 in overtime, and they put Lamont Wade on Whop Philyor, and those two corners, Tariq Castro-Fields and Joey Porter, were locking everyone down. How did they not match up one of those two on Whop?
But think of all the great coverage that on the other plays where it wasn't just that Penix had guys hanging all over him when he threw the ball. The ball was going boom when it came out. It's like, how did he throw that out of that mess he was in? And then how did the receivers catch it?
Yeah.
Really, really good coverage. It's like the defense did everything they possibly could up to this much. And Indiana kept making incredible.
It was unbelievable. And I'm not listen. Lamont Wade had a pretty good game. He turned the game around with the fumble recovery and the interception. But he's not their best coverage player.
Yeah.
And how Whop Philyor gets basically in man-to-man coverage with the game on the line, and it's not Tariq and it's not Joey Porter on him. I thought that was a little bit surprising. But you're right. You know, Michael Penix, Tom Allen, those guys all made plays. The receivers made tough catches. Penn State's defense played well enough to win, but Indiana just made a couple more plays. And Dave, it was just, it was one of those games that they made so many mistakes on special teams, and they made some mistakes on offense with those early interceptions by Clifford. You can't survive that against a good Indiana team. And they almost did.
The quarterback played well at all for pretty much the first 3 quarters.
Yeah,
it's all a blur now, but as I recall it, we're looking after 3 quarters thinking what a sucky game this is. were comments around Twitter. And I mean, I was saying it too. And then the amazing thing was both of those guys played pretty well down the stretch, but especially Penix. But Clifford, it wasn't that windy here. I mean, it wasn't windy at all.
He was
just sailing some throws.
He made some very poor throws, but just when you're beginning to wonder about him, he is just such it's an athlete, a competitor, a tough kid. He's mental. You can tell he's mentally tough, Dave, because a lot of quarterbacks I don't think would have recovered from that start. And man, he will get up off the deck. He will. He made some plays with his legs because they couldn't trust anything else. And then he makes the 60-yard throw to Dotson with the game on the line. He makes the money throw. He did his job. He did his job in overtime. And they were just springing leaks, Dave, from so many different angles that the inconsistency in every phase killed them. You can't say that one unit was good throughout the game.
I think we've seen games like this, probably not this ragged, in a lot of openers over the years that weren't exacerbated by a quality Big Ten team.
Correct.
They were against Youngstown State or Florida International or Coastal Carolina, and we just didn't see them.
Right.
It's a first game. It's a COVID year. It's this weird experience where they don't have enough contact. They can't do enough of anything they want to do. So that is that. And what you said about Clifford too, I remember thinking there are guys who start playing badly and making bad throws and they get down on themselves.
They hang their heads.
They hang their heads. Not that guy, man.
No,
it's like he was mad. He was so mad. He was like, man, F it. I'm gonna run. I'll run 14 yards because that's something that has nothing to do with touch. That if you're having a bad day, it's like something you're not going to screw up. So you run. He was finding ways to get himself out of that, and that
he improvised. He was able to improvise in a very. I mean, the crowd wasn't a factor, but that's Indiana. Indiana played hard. I think. In a lot of ways, what Clifford was able to do after that start, Dave, it was almost heroic. Shaka Toney took the game over in the fourth quarter. He's going to have nothing to show for it. Those corners, Tariq Castro-Fields and Joey Porter played tremendous. I don't remember Penn State corners covering like this.
I
shut guys down.
Yeah,
I don't remember it.
And those are good receivers.
Yeah, they were made to look bad by that coverage.
Yeah, they were all over him. Boy, Joey Porter. Oh,
yeah.
I heard, but you think you know, but you don't know.
He's good. He is good.
Man, yeah.
One thing I wanted to ask you about, Dave, and it kind of flew a little under the radar, but Michael Penix on those 2-point conversion runs in the one in regulation, Penn State blitzed, and it looked like he was hemmed in. He was patient, and he was able to kind of sneak out the back door to tie it, and then the run where he beat Brisker to the pylon for the score. You saw Antonio Shelton had no shot at running him down. What I wanted to ask you about is, Jesse Luketa got ejected from the game early in the fourth quarter for the targeting call. Yeah. I wonder if he's on the field on those plays, if maybe it's a little different. I know it's a hypothetical, but I wonder if that hurt Penn State's defense not having him on the field for those two plays specifically.
I wondered if they had all expected. I thought it was a really shrewd call by Allen in regulation when they needed the 2 to tie the game when it was 28-26.
Yeah.
When you saw that diamond wide receiver set.
Yeah.
What are you thinking? I tweeted what I was thinking.
Yeah. Is it going to either be a screen or a slip screen or something like that?
Yeah. Or clear it out and Fillier comes underneath.
Something like that.
Gets inside leverage. Inside leverage. It's a quick throw. And they're not going to call it. They're not going to call offensive interference there. And I think the Penn State defense saw that. They called timeout. I would be very curious what Brent Pry told his guys, because Whop Fillier is the big play man. He was starting to heat up. He made a couple of great catches. And then Penix just goes in the back door. I mean, there was really only one man who can make that play. And I don't know if Luketa gets over there.
He hadn't really run the ball up until that point, too. He had stayed in the pocket.
He's not a terribly quick runner. He's fast, straight line.
Yeah.
And you saw on the winning play.
Yeah.
He didn't really rev up until he got a couple strides. He's like a racehorse.
He's a long strider. He is.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah,
you got it.
Like
watch the replay. I know you'll see it again when you get back to your hotel. He has the ball in his left hand, and he has it in both hands as he turns the corner, and then he switches it to his right hand because of how his body is positioned. And his right hand is actually, I think, longer than his left hand because of the angle. But not many people. I don't think a lot of quarterbacks would have done that.
Would have had the poise to do it.
Well, because it's a righty quarterback. You don't usually shift the ball to your left hand. Even if, you know what I mean, it was his offhand.
Yeah, it looked like he'd done it before.
Yeah.
But how about just the poise to do it when you gotta have it, man? And if he got it by that much, by that decision. And that's what everyone's always said about this kid. He played in a lot of really good competition in the Sun Coast of Florida, Tampa Tech. And nothing bothers him. Nothing phases him. And you could say the same thing about him that you said about Clifford.
Yeah.
That he was having a lousy day. He just missed a couple of touchdowns.
He had that guy for a touchdown, and he threw the ball 105 miles an hour, like through his hands. It was a touchdown across the middle on third down.
Yeah, well, that was – are you talking about the one he threw over the umpire's head?
He had that tight end coming across the middle, left to right, wide open in the second half. And he threw it like 90 miles an hour, and it just was a little high. There was no one there.
That went over the umpire. It was Peyton Hendershot, and it went right over the umpire's head. I don't know if you saw that. And the umpire ducked, and all of a sudden the ball comes out of the umpire's head, and it, like you said, he threw it so hard that it got on Hendershot like this. Yeah. He doesn't have a lot of touch sometimes. Where again. Who didn't have touch when we were on the podcast on Thursday? Joe Gillum. Jefferson Joe Gillum.
Jefferson Street Joe Gillum. That was a good reference.
Reminds me a lot of him, but this guy will be better because he's usually more accurate. I mean, he was much more accurate the last couple of seasons.
Hey, did anything else strike you about the game? Because I wanted to get your big picture thoughts. Noah Cain.
Yeah, I was going to say when
Noah Cain, and I'm thinking, that did not feel like it's going to be a 1 week injury, and now the Buckeyes are standing in the way of a 1-1 start for Penn State. It's just not ideal. I mean, when you lose the first game this way, and then Ohio State, after Justin Fields, I think went like 39 of 40, and the one play, it was like 20 of 21. His one incompletion.
He was grinding. It was the fourth play of the game.
Yeah.
And he was grinding. You know how he does. He's such a hard runner.
Yeah.
And I think this is what happened, but I actually didn't see him limp off the field. You guys did. And I was watching live and just going back and forth. But I do remember the run because he was grinding for a first down. It was second and 3. And he was making one last churn. And I think his ankle got caught maybe. I'm not sure what happened.
He was limping, so I think it's safe to presume it was a lower body, lower leg injury.
Yeah.
And
those don't just go away.
You saw with Devin Ford, he's a good runner, but he's not an inside runner.
No,
the freshman's actually better at it.
The other kid, Lee, looked better doing that. He looked more like Cain, but I would really doubt that Cain's going to be available. The other thing is, man, we are still in the same situation. Other than Dotson finally getting free, which was really a busted coverage in the safety.
Yeah, I saw it. It was a well-designed play.
He got sucked up, and he got mesmerized by Clifford maybe scrambling up the middle, and he got caught in no man's land there. And that wasn't John Dotson getting like wide open.
Right.
That was kind of a busted coverage. These guys, the wideouts, are not getting open.
I know. And it's not going to change against Ohio State.
Clifford, against these guys. This is an ordinary secondary.
Yeah.
They're a workman-like secondary that they play hard, they play well, and they know what they're doing. But it's not the kind of secondary you shouldn't be able to blow by a few times. And Clifford didn't take shots deep because I don't think there were any shots to take. I know, in the old days of the Raiders, they would just take shots deep because they wanted the defense to think about it, even if they were well covered. But I think that's why Clifford didn't. But he didn't take a shot deep until Parker Washington on the interference call. I think it was the very first shot deep he took, which was before Dotson's touchdown.
Dave, I think there were about 150 combined offensive snaps in this game. I think Penn State was in the 80s, and I think Indiana was in the 60s. I think there were just 3 chunk plays in the whole game total. 2 were 21 yards, and the 60-yarder to Dotson. Everything else was underneath. It was all – the game was – there was some good tackling in the game, but it was just a very much of a methodical game, and it was a game of missed opportunities. You know, if there was one play, Dave, that I think Penn State would like to have back, and you could probably make a case for 12 of them, putting Will Levis in on 3rd and 1 from the Indiana 7, cold, and he looked like he looked just like he wasn't ready to go. That was a killer. I know I missed a field goal later in the half, but they just gave away. I think they were 2 for 6 or 2 for 5 in the red zone. Dave, you can't do it, man. You can't do it.
It's like this. I mean, everyone used to love, and we were kind of fascinated with, good offensive line, a lot of running backs, control the games, keep the other offense off the field. But you know what? If you've got 14, 16 play drives, there's always more of a chance that something's going to go wrong. You're going to make a mistake in there, especially in a first game, especially in a game like this early in the season. Sooner or later, you're going to screw up. And they kept screwing up. I mean, what did they have? A 12-play drive and a 16-play drive with no points.
Yeah.
They basically pissed away, I think, what was it, 7? I was adding it up during the game. I think they gave Indiana 13 and pissed away 17 on their own. So
the Clifford interceptions resulted in 10 Indiana points. Pinniger hits an upright from 20. He's missed more field goals this year than he did last year.
Yeah.
Hits that upright, and Dave, this is tic-tac, but I just think that, they should have tried to get 5 more yards before that stout field goal. They had enough time. I still think they had a timeout. I don't know why they tried that field goal with 8 seconds to go.
Well, a lot of times teams are so conscious, especially quarterbacks, when you don't have a timeout left, you're so conscious of get rid of the ball, can't take a sack. I believe there were 11 seconds left there.
Yeah.
You saw Clifford threw the ball like way too early, and he was like, I don't want to make a mistake, and he just kind of threw it up in the air out of bounds. He was not going to take a sack, and they were coming in on him. I mean, I think there were a couple times they blitzed 7 on him.
Yeah.
I think maybe he expected that. He just didn't want to make a mistake and get a sack.
So they didn't have a timeout left there?
Run another one with 8 seconds left.
Did they not have a timeout left?
No, they didn't.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. That's what I wasn't sure about.
11 seconds and then 8 seconds. And I would have kicked it with 8 seconds too. But, I might have taken a shot deep down the sideline because I don't think Indiana would have expected that. And then maybe he scores or he can get out of bounds one way or the other. But maybe I roll him out. It is nitpicking. I don't think that's where they lost the game.
No, absolutely.
By any means.
But you could see better than I could. How short was the field goal? Was it just short, or was it a couple yards short?
The field goal?
Yeah, the 57-yard.
I would say it was a yard short. Wasn't it wide right?
I think it was online. I thought we didn't have a good look at it, but I thought it was online.
I didn't see the replay. But it was, when he hit it, I knew it was no good.
He thought it was good. His reaction, he thought it was good.
No, from the side, I knew he didn't hit it enough. I said right afterward, I said that doesn't have enough. Because there was a very slight wind also coming against the field goal, probably just enough to blow it down before it got to the post. Good cross.
So I guess I should probably say, Dave, real quick, this is the blue-white breakdown with Dave Jones and Bob Flounders. The one thing I need to ask you, and we got to talk about it, is, so what was the experience like for you? How was your travel, and what was it like at the game? What was the atmosphere like? What was it like outside? Is there anything you can kind of share, kind of paint? I know there were some players' parents at the games for both teams, but it seemed like a very sterile environment. Did you feel that way? What was it like?
Yeah, I'm glad that people get to watch. And I'm glad that people can forget about what we're going through for a while. And let's face it, this is not a hardship for any of us. Right. So I don't care about that. I'm just saying it's not college football. It's not what I know. I was sitting here and I just got done writing about it. It's basically what I wrote my column about. I thought maybe I could write the column only about that, but then all this happened, and I had to kind of. I actually went up and talked to some Indiana students who are all stuffed into a. There's 10 of these guys. You should have been a student at this place, Bob. You would have been perfect.
I was there. I went to downtown Bloomington like in whatever, one of the early games when I was on the beat, and it's up. If you don't mind me saying, if the fans don't mind me saying, I was impressed with the drinking and the bars in Bloomington. It seems like it's a good drinking town.
Well, I think the campus itself is a very pretty campus. I've always thought that. Once you get outside of Bloomington, but we've experienced some of that, God knows. But I think Bloomington itself is very much different than, say, Purdue. I think it's a really pretty campus, a lot of beautiful limestone buildings, and the buildings around are cool. And these kids had the primo apartment house in the entire campus, straight across the street from Memorial Stadium, and they're playing beer pong. Not beer pong. They're playing die pong. Have you ever heard of this? Or beer die. You play. It's like beer pong, except you play with a die from dice. One die.
Yeah.
And I don't understand it. You throw it up in the air and you got to catch it on a bounce or something, and someone drinks.
Why didn't you get in on some of that action? Maybe
I had a mask on, and these knuckleheads, none of them did, but they all live with each other, so the
damage is done already.
Yeah, whatever's going on has
all got
on. There were a couple of girls there. There weren't too many kids there. They were reasonable, and they were really nice kids and funny. And I went up and talked to them for a little while, took some pictures, sent them to Joe. And that's what Joe would have done if he'd been here. So I was thinking, what would Joe do?
Absolutely.
WWJD, what would Joe do as far as pictures? And I saw these knuckleheads across the street and went over and introduced myself and watched them play this game and then talked to them. And I mean, for them, here they are. They got this great apartment, one of them said, and now there's no football they can go to, I talked to a couple of parents of Indiana player who was just a freshman, and he wasn't going to probably play too many snaps except maybe on special teams. They drove 681 miles from Collins, Mississippi yesterday, all day yesterday, straight up. I guess that's,
was that 10 hours? 10 or 11 hours?
That's got to be 13, dude. They got here at 11 last night. They missed the thunderstorms. By the way, if this game had been yesterday, we would be in about the second quarter right now, because there would have been about 5 hours of lightning delay. Yeah. It would have been lightninged out. I think they would have postponed the game and played tomorrow, actually, because they were some nasty lightning strikes. This was serious stuff, not like we had in East Lansing.
Do you, real quick, Dave, before we close this up, I know that I have a feeling that you might be thinking this, but I might be wrong. Do you, as many mistakes as Penn State made today, how much of this do you think is on James Franklin?
That decision is very likely the game. I just you game it out. Did you game out the math? What did you come up with? What did you come up with?
I mean, even if they take three knees, I think Indiana had one timeout at 1:41.
I came up with 15 seconds, very liberally. I mean, very conservatively. I came up with 15 seconds left. Other people have come up with. Brett Ciancia, my buddy, who's the metrics football guy, he said he came up with 8. And I know one of our frequent texters came up with 8.
I know who you're talking about. Mr. Happy Pants. Let's just call him Mr. Happy Pants, that always is a big fan of everything Penn State does.
Anyway, it's like this. These aren't pros. They're college kids. They're 19, 20, 21, 22-year-old kids. And you can't ever be sure what they're going to do. If you're not absolutely positive they're going to do what you're telling them to do, then you take the chance out of it. You take the chance
out of their hands.
Of failure out of it. And a lot of coaches have been criticized for doing that too often. but they've been burned, man. Especially basketball coaches, I know. They're very conservative in certain situations because they've been burned too often, and they do the less risky thing all the time. I think in this case, I was thinking, man, okay, I would have handed the ball off, but you've got to make your guy. You really only have to make a couple of guys sure. You got to make the running back positive that he knows, and you got to, of course, Sean Clifford, make sure he knows. Who else do you have? Who else needs to know? Yeah. That's it. You got to be sure that those guys are on the right track. If you're not sure, that's the head coach's job. Yeah.
This is a tough one, man. This is a tough loss.
Well, it's not like any of those other ones. It's not like Ohio State where you're playing superior players. Right. I mean, those hurt, but not like this. And superior players maybe.
I'll be curious to see how Indiana finishes up. I know this was the best. I think James is right. This was the best Indiana team they've seen, and they had him on the ground. They couldn't finish him, and
that's why I picked them to win. I really believe in Tom Allen. I didn't think this was a great team by any stretch, but they've been so close so many times. I just thought they had to get over the hump.
Dave, we're getting the wrap-up sign. We got to go. Hey, travel safe. Are you heading back to Indianapolis?
Yes.
All right, I'll be in touch on your ride home.
I will see you guys soon.
All right, see ya.